So unlike a lot of other MMOs, RuneScape has two different game options. So we have the original RuneScape that actually came out January 4th, 2001, and the game, yes, is still running. This game is now called RuneScape 3. I guess it's on like its third generation of different things that they've upgraded about the game, right? So there was RuneScape Classic and then RuneScape 2, and now there is RuneScape 3. And the game has pretty much seen weekly updates for 20 years. At one point in time, this is one of the most popular MMOs in the entire world. It did very well back in the day when you could just launch it from your school computer. Everyone pretty much played it back in the day, but throughout the updates and throughout the years, they've made changes that the players in the community didn't like too much. They changed the combat system, which is something that kind of made RuneScape unique in a way where it was unlike other MMOs. You didn't have an action bar. You either used melee, mage, or range, and it was like a combat triangle, and it really works out perfectly. And then we have the other version of RuneScape called Old School RuneScape. This was released on February 22nd, 2013. Players wanted the old version of the game back. So we've got a really split community on people who like the RuneScape 3 and the people who like the old school RuneScape. There is a bunch of people that like both and play both, but today I'm going to go over both versions of the game and we can decide which version you would like to play. I'm going to go over the pros and cons of most aspects of the game so you can decide for yourself. Now, personally, I choose to play old school RuneScape. It's just because I've been playing this game for, 15 plus years now, so I'm more familiar with this version of the game, so I will try my best to not be biased. I have played a fair amount of RuneScape 3, so I know a lot about the game. Okay, so we're going to start this off with the new player experience. Now, that's something that a game should really focus on because when you get a new player, you want to keep them, right? Now, I'm going to say with both of the games, it's really not the best, right? We'll start with RuneScape 3, right? You open the game and you go through a tutorial and then you're in a world alone. Now, there is little activity helpers that can kind of show you what to do, but the thing about RuneScape 3 is the interface is awful. They haven't fixed it. People have been complaining about it forever. It's really hard to find anything on the interface unless you are playing that game all the time and you just know it off by heart. Every single time I return to RuneScape 3 to check it out again, I'm confused. I can't open my skills, I can't open this, and it takes me some Google searching to figure out how to do that. Now, old school RuneScape has a very simple interface. You got everything right there. You got your skills, you got this, you got that, and you don't have to go out of the way to find anything. But for the actual new player experience on the game, they don't really hold your hand at all. You kind of finish the tutorial and you're out in the world alone. Now, I will have to say, though, Old School RuneScape has a ton of guides out there that you can kind of look up. RuneScape 3 does have some guides as well, but Old School RuneScape just has unlimited amount of guides and knowledge if you need to look anything up, and the game itself is so basic that you can actually kind of figure things out for yourself. Okay, so next I want to talk about the game clients. Now, if you have a Jagex account, you can launch RuneScape 3 or Old School RuneScape right from your Jagex account, which makes it a lot easier. Now, RuneScape 3 has one single client that you launch it right from, and pretty much every little plugin or this or that you would want to see your experience or maybe track something, you have to actually pay for with this thing called Rune Metrics. Old School RuneScape has a bunch of different options for the clients that you can use. So we've got Old School RuneScape Buddy, which was like one of the original third-party clients, which has a bunch of little plugins in it. We've got the most popular option, which is Runelite. That's what I'm using currently right now. It has a million different little plugins that you can turn on and help you enhance your game by tracking your drops, your experience, quest helper, loot trackers. There's unlimited amounts of things you can do. Tile markers. You could even enhance your graphics a little bit with Runelite. We've got a 117 HD plugin you get. And finally, we have another option called the HDOS. HDOS is a community project that has been in the works for a very long time now and has recently just been added to the Jagex launcher and is safe to use. It enhances the graphics to make Old School RuneScape look like it did from, say, 2009 to 2011 era of the game. It's a beautiful client and it's starting to get a lot of the Runelite plugins, so it's another option that we have. Okay, so next I want to talk about pay to win. This is another thing that RuneScape 3 made a lot of players upset when they added this into the game. So RuneScape 3 has microtransactions. So basically you could use real life money to basically get you ahead in the game. You can buy these things called spins or keys, and then you can use them and get experience, get gold, get items instantly just for a little bit of money. However, if you do decide to play an Ironman account on RuneScape 3, this is totally avoided. Also, RuneScape 3 has these items called bonds, which as well as Old School does, and that's the only microtransaction that Old School RuneScape has. Now, bonds are actually a good thing for the game though, because it allows players to use in-game gold to buy their membership, but that's the only microtransaction that Old School RuneScape has. RuneScape 3 also has this thing called the Solomon's General Store, where you can actually buy with real-life money cosmetic overrides to make your character look quote-unquote cool. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the skills in the game. So Old School RuneScape has 23 skills that you can train from level 1 to 99. Each skill will take you anywhere from 50 to 200 to 300 hours to complete. Old School RuneScape is getting its very first new skill added next year, hopefully, which is going to be sailing, so that will make it have 24 skills. Now, this is where RuneScape 3 has an advantage. They've got a total of 29 different skills that you can get from level 1 to 99. It is a lot quicker, though, to get from 1 to 99. I would say each skill maybe takes between 30 and 60 hours to complete. But there is also level 120 on this game, which would take, 300 to 400 hours, so it's similar to Old School in that perspective. So RuneScape 3 has all of the exact same skills that Old School has, but they have additionally summoning, dungeoneering, divination, invention, and then we have archaeology, and recently they added a skill called necromancy, which is a brand new combat style. Now, summoning wasn't really liked too much. It made it pretty overpowered. Dungeoneering was a fan favorite, but it was more of a mini game. Divination was absolutely hated by the community. Invention was a skill that kind of fixed a lot of the problems with the game, because there was so much dead content in RuneScape 3. So basically what Invention did was make you be able to use the dead content like bandos, equipment, and stuff like that, and disassemble it for components to upgrade your gear. So it did help a lot with like the economy. And then archaeology was a skill that a lot of people seem to like. I wasn't a super big fan of it. You basically go around the world and then just like dig up some excavations, and that's about it. And then you kind of fix them, and then you're an archaeologist. That's about it. The one skill I did like a lot, and I recently just played through RuneScape 3 from 1 to 99. I got 99 necromancy, and let me tell you, it is the best combat skill in RuneScape 3 by far. It was actually extremely fun to play, and it kind of made sense with the combat. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the combat itself. Now, I'm going to say 5 years ago, I definitely would have given it, honestly, to RuneScape 3, because Old School RuneScape's combat system is very simple, right? Especially, we'll use like a Slayer task as an example. Go kill 100 Abyssal Demons, right? Now, on Old School RuneScape, you gear up, you get the exact gear you always take, and then you put your prayer on, kill the Abyssal Demon, and then click the next one, and then click the next one, and then click the next one, right? Now, RuneScape 3 is a little bit different. They've got a bunch of different abilities that you can queue up and like attack multiple different targets at once, and you can pretty much use any of the combat styles because they're very strong, especially if you're like a higher level or whatever, right? And then you get your experience that way. Now, Old School RuneScape, you get your experience every single time you hit a target. Now, RuneScape 3, you only get experience when you kill a target. Now, for bossing, it is very different, right? Now, I would have given this to RuneScape 3 too a long time ago, but Old School RuneScape has done an incredible job with such a simple combat system. They can make it super complex, right? And you need to actually know the tick system. You need to know different spells, movements, mechanics. Honestly, I'm gonna have to give combat to Old School RuneScape, right? This simple little system it's just so familiar, it's so good, it just works well, and it's a combat triangle, right, rather than a combat square now like RuneScape 3. It flows very well, and it makes sense, and it can be very complex with all the bosses in the game. So I'm definitely gonna have to give this to old school RuneScape. And another reason is most people quit RuneScape 3 because of the evolution of combat, because they changed the combat system. Now, if they just did what they did with old school and add, new bosses, to add new mechanics rather than just, oh, this one you gotta pray here. That's kind of all they were doing back then, right? And yeah, they did an incredible job with the combat on old school RuneScape. They made it difficult. Now, don't get me wrong, RuneScape 3 does have some cool bosses, some cool mechanics, and you do have to learn quite a bit to actually be really good at the combat system and bossing in RuneScape 3. So if you want to take some time and get to learn it, it is actually very, very well done, very well as well, but it's just not comparable to old school, in my opinion. Okay, next I want to talk about PvP. Now, PvP basically doesn't exist on RuneScape 3 anymore. There's an option that you can actually disable PvP in the wilderness, so you could just walk around the wilderness with a billion GP and not be worried about losing it. So yeah, and even if you can find some fights and whatever, it's not that good. And a lot of people PvP on RuneScape 3 in Legacy mode, which is basically the exact same combat system that RuneScape or old school RuneScape has. Now, PvP is slowly kind of dipping away. It is still extremely popular though, and it's not as popular as it was at release of old school RuneScape, but it is very complex, and you need to be extremely good and have a lot of practice to be able to get kills. It has a very high learning curve, but PvP definitely dominates in old school RuneScape compared to RuneScape 3. Okay, so let's talk about the graphics. Now, I'm going to have to give this one over to RuneScape 3. If you've never played it before, just even log into your old account or something and walk around the world, even in free-to-play, and you will understand what I mean. It's cool, like, going into an area like Lumbridge, right, where you go all the time in old school RuneScape, and then just actually seeing it be so enhanced to the point where it's kind of unrecognizable in a way, but you still recognize it at the same time. It's kind of weird, right? It's like you haven't been to a town in 20 years that you lived in, and then you go back to that town and it's like, oh my god. So yeah, RuneScape 3 definitely has some beautiful graphics. I will have to say, I personally like the graphics in old school RuneScape. They've got some little charm to them, and you can definitely enhance them by the 117 HD plugin on Runelite. I get asked all the time, send me your settings. If you want my Runelite settings, check out my top 15 Runelite plugins video. I show all of my settings in there. And then also now we've got the HDOS client that you can use, which will enhance old school RuneScape graphics quite a bit. Let's talk about the gameplay itself, because that's very important. Now, both of the games provide AFK activities and then focus activities. So they're both great games to play if you're in college, or maybe you work from home and you can have it up on a second monitor or something like that. And then they both have a ton of active content too, like questing and achievement diaries and bossing. So they're both very similar like that. I will have to say though, RuneScape 3, you can almost AFK every single thing in the entire game. So if you really want to AFK a ton, RuneScape 3 is definitely the option for that. They even have these things called aggression potions, where you can click and have every single monster be aggroed to you. So you literally just have to click the screen every 6 minutes, and that's about it for combat on that game. Now, as for actually leveling up and stuff like that, RuneScape 3 is a lot faster of a game. So if you're brand new to RuneScape, you're gonna think this game is so easy, right? You can literally just knock out a bunch of 99s. So simple. If you never played the game before, I can say you could easily get a max cape. Now, it's very different with old school RuneScape. It takes a very, very long time, and the leveling process is actually pretty brutal, but it's extremely rewarding. So it's up to you which type you want to play. I personally like old school RuneScape. I like a challenge, and I want things to actually feel like an accomplishment when I get them, right? If I got 99 rune crafting on RuneScape 3, no one would give a fuck, you know what I mean? But if you get 99 rune crafting on old school RuneScape, you still get people saying nice cape, man. Okay, so basically when you have done everything you wanted in the game, like quests, achievements, there's also combat tasks and collection log that you can do, right? And RuneScape 3 kind of has this as well, but RuneScape 3 also has a completionist cape that you can go for, which I think is really cool, and I've been wanting this in old school RuneScape for a very long time. They did say that they might add it, but it will be pulled. Okay, so next I want to talk about the community. Now, old school RuneScape dominates when it comes to the community, right? We've got a crazy, passionate, and lovingful community towards this game. They love it with an absolute passion. So much to the point where every single update that comes into the game has to have a 70% yes to actually pass and come into the game. So every one of us actually choose the updates that come into the game. Unlike RuneScape 3, they just put whatever they want in there. So if it's a great update like Necromancy, it gets put into the game. Or if it's a bad update like the Hero Pass or the Solomon's General Store or the Evolution of Combat, it just comes into the game anyways, and the players don't have a yes or no option. Now, this isn't always a good thing though, because a lot of the OG players want this game to stay old school RuneScape forever, so a lot of certain updates do not get passed because they don't want the game to change, but the game has to change a little bit to grow and actually stay alive forever, you know what I mean? So it's not always a good thing, but I think it's more of a good thing than a bad thing. Well, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching the video today. With all of these options, you can choose which game is better suited for you, right? Depending if you maybe want better graphics or whatever it might be, RuneScape 3 might be for you. And if you want some like longer skills that are maybe more rewarding, maybe if you're into PvP or a community, maybe old school RuneScape is for you. I've been trying to get my dad to play RuneScape forever, but he seems to want something with better graphics and maybe an ability bar. He's used to games like World of Warcraft and Guild Wars, so if he tries RuneScape 3, that's totally fine with me, and I'll help him along the journey. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching the video, and I will catch you in the next one. See ya later.